All right, this is Ask Grimala, our UNLV beat writer, UNLV expert Mike Grimala here at Las Vegas Sun. We're taking to Facebook today to answer your questions about UNLV basketball, UNLV football, using the hashtag Ask Grimala. We got questions on Twitter, and now we're going to broadcast this out to you. Folks, if there's anything you want to know about UNLV, now's the chance. Send them right here on Facebook, and we will get them answered for you. Let's start off with the question a lot of folks have on the top of their mind, Mike, and we like to thank Zach at Ace Trainer Zach on Twitter. He wants to know, Mike, what else does UNLV need to do when it comes to realignment? The next time realignment comes around, how can UNLV be considered for a jump to like the Pac-12, for example?
I mean, that's a big question. First, thank you to Zach. He's a very loyal follower. He always sends in questions. He's always got good topics on his mind. That's a big question. It's UNLV, obviously, their priority now is getting into a power conference. That's like the number one focus. There's a lot of things that go into it. I mean, first off, on the court, you got to win some more games. It's hard to make a case for yourself to be a Pac-12 school or a Big 12 school while saying at the same time, we've also finished in last place in the Mountain West for 5 straight years in football. We've just finished in last place in basketball, and we're not winning any games. So it's hard to take a bottom feeder from the Mountain West and make that pitch to, the Pac-12. The other thing that is a factor is the university itself in terms of, I think that the term that gets thrown around is Tier 1. Like if you're going to be a Pac-12 school, they want you to be a higher echelon university, which means you got to be ranked in the top 50. I was looking this up. I was doing some prep before we came in.
Sure.
You've got to be ranked, in the top 50 in the university rankings, or you've got to be in some specific ranking. You've got to be ranked, and you've got to be ranked as an engineering school or something like that. So it's what the university is doing in building like a medical school and things like that. They play into it. So that's got to get up and running. I mean, it's easy to say like we've got potential for all that, but you sort of want it in hand before. You don't want the Pac-12 to have to make a decision based on faith that you're going to get there as a university. You kind of want to be there already and make it easy for them to accept you the next time that they want to expand.
Sure, a lot of moving parts, obviously. New stadium that they're going to share with the Raiders.
Which is a great thing. It's very big.
New practice facility for football, medical school where they received monies to where the initial class of students are all on scholarship. So a lot of positive things moving in the right direction. Will that include possibly going to the Pac-12? We'll find out. But what we could talk about is next year for UNLV basketball, because an 11-win team won't make it anywhere. And our guy Patrick Anthony, who's been following us for years, wants to know, okay, they've already announced some departures. Jalen Poyser leading the list, obviously. Mm-hmm. What kind of guys do they need to bring in for those open spots, and do you expect any more other UNLV players to leave?
I do know that there's 2 scholarships open right now, so they are obviously recruiting more guys. Whether any current players are going to leave, in addition to the 3 that have already left, I would think it's probably likely that you'll see 1, maybe 2 more guys leave. It's an interesting question. It's not just an on-court thing. It's also, I saw Marvin Menzies talking about this in the media at the Final Four. He's talking about APR and sort of the academic impact of players leaving early. So that's something to keep an eye on. You can't have 9 players transferring out one year and then 6 players transferring out the next year without it hurting your APR score. So that's something to keep an eye on. But, I mean, in terms of recruiting and maybe recruiting over some of the players on the team, I think that's a given. Like, the talent level has got to come up across the entire roster. So if Marvin thinks he can get a junior college player that's better than, a Georgi Slovanchinin, then you may have to see Georgi Slovanchinin leaving, which is not ideal. You never want to be pushing kids out the door, but if you want a winning program, that's sort of what you have to do when you're rebuilding from this stage. So I would say that you'll definitely see some more roster movement before the offseason is over.
Sure. Ask Grimala is our hashtag on Twitter. You could also ask with a question right here on Facebook. And Mike, UNLV basketball recruiting better than anybody in the market. Brandon McCoy, McDonald's All-American, big kid from San Diego, could come in right away and impact the program. UNLV's in the Final 5, so is Oregon, so is San Diego State. And our guy Zachary Moramini on Twitter wants to know, is UNLV still have a chance at this kid?
UNLV is still alive for Brandon McCoy, from what I hear. I hear Oregon a lot, and I hear UNLV. And McCoy is a guy who it's hard to read. They've kept everything under wraps. He doesn't do a lot of media. He doesn't do a lot of talking. He's not on Twitter, every couple of minutes narrowing down lists and things like that. They kept it very close to the vest. UNLV still thinks that they have a shot. From what I can tell, McCoy, he's going to announce sometime in the next couple of weeks, maybe. As I know, signing day, the signing period starts on April 12th. So that sort of gives you a target, as in that day or maybe around then for an announcement. But for right now, what I'm hearing is UNLV is still alive, and I think UNLV coaches believe they still have a shot. So they are still actively recruiting him. It's not like a P.J. Washington situation or a Troy Brown situation where UNLV's in the Final Five or whatever it is, but they really don't have a shot, and they're not really actively going after him that hard. They think they have a shot at this kid, so they're still going after him.
All right. David Coronado, Mike, wants to know next basketball season, 2018 for Menzies. Is there a magic win total that he needs to get to where folks think he's the right choice for the job and not on the hot seat? I know when he got the contract, and I'm adding to what David wanted to say, but folks were like, okay, he gets a ball again. He was hired so late in the process. And, we've heard the narrative 1,000 times with how he had no players and he had to take players that he probably wouldn't want. But is this kind of like, what does he need to do next year to where folks were like, okay, Marvin's our guy?
I mean, this season it's very hard to judge him on the team that he put on the floor this year, just because, like you mentioned, the constraints that he was working under and the obstacles that he had to get around. Next year, you'll get a better sense of the team that he's putting together and the direction the program is going. 11 wins in year one, last place. You got to do better than that. I mean, that's the absolute lowest bar. Anything worse than that, and then you're in serious trouble. Above that, 13, 14 wins you're trending in the right direction, but I don't think anyone's going to get excited about it. You get up to 16 wins, then you're talking, 500 overall, 17 wins. That I think most people will be happy with. You win 16, 17 games next year, no talk about the hot seat, which there shouldn't be anyways. I guess he's signed a 5-year contract. He's 1 year into it. Wasn't even a real season. Give him some time, but I think 16, 17, what do you think? Does that sound about right? Like, if he comes in and wins 17 games, like you can't talk about him.
I mean, there's a school
seat.
of thought, though, that this is UNLV, and I mean, it's still, the AP had its poll, top 100 college teams of all time. UNLV was a top 20 team, and now you're saying, oh, God, if they get 17, we're going to name a street after Marvin, Mike.
But those are historical rankings. That's not the rankings from last year. It's not like they're a top 20 program now. They're trying to get there. I mean, they have the capability to get there. They've done it in the past. There's still potential to get there. They believe. You just got to give it some time. Like 16, 17 is okay. That's good. That's a good win total for second year, considering where the program went. They didn't have any players.
Yeah. Frankie from Washington, great guy. Mike, he wants to know overseas recruiting. Maybe the well's dried up here stateside. You've seen teams like Gonzaga, St. Mary's, who UNLV compares well with, have some success maybe going into Australia. What's the chances of Marvin, who has gotten players from abroad, maybe upping that a little bit to try to fill some needs?
It's a possibility. I don't know of any true international players that he's recruiting at the moment, but that often happens under the radar. But Menzies is a guy who has shown in the past that he will reach out to faraway destinations. He'll find players. The guy I would point to is they just got a commitment from 6'11" big man Mbaki Jiang from Florida Prep, who came from a basketball program in Africa. I think he was in Senegal, and he came up through a program and he came to the U.S. last year, and he played one season of high school ball, and he was kind of under the radar. But the thing, when I was talking to the athletic director from Diong's school, he said that he was coming up through his program in Africa, and Marvin Menzies knew about him before he even came to America. So Marvin Menzies knew him. He knew his handler. He knew his uncle. He knew everyone that was attached to the kid before he even came to America and played in the United States. So international is a strength of his. I wouldn't, if you're not hearing anything about internationals, I wouldn't take it as a bad sign. It's just he's working. You just don't often. That doesn't sort of make the news as much as the local recruits.
Yeah, I think UNLV fans, Mike, are always cynical. They always have a snide remark.
No.
And yeah. And so when the league is good, San Diego State, New Mexico, and UNLV are good as well. Mm-hmm. And New Mexico and UNLV are bad. New Mexico just fired Noodles, its coach. And David Crowley wants to know which program is going to suck more next year, UNLV or New Mexico. David, we appreciate you. Remember, ask Grimala on Twitter or right here on Facebook. So, Mike, who's going to suck more?
I would think that New Mexico. They're kind of going through what UNLV went through last offseason. They fired their coach late in the offseason, relatively late. So they're sort of scrambling to get a new head coach installed. We don't know who that's going to be. They're also seeing pretty big defections in terms of transfers. They lost Elijah Brown, some other big players, so their roster is sort of in flux. We don't know who's going to be playing or what level of players they can get in there for next year to sort of fill out the roster. Whereas Marvin Menzies is sort of building on last year. I think they've got some pretty decent players coming in. If you ask me right now, I think that UNLV would finish above them in the standings.
But hopefully it's not like 10th and 11th.
No, I don't know. It's too early. I can't see either one of them being. The Mountain West has kind of gone to a bad place when UNLV and New Mexico are talked about as two of your worst teams.
Yeah. So Menzies, Mike, has got to go into the JC ranks to kind of fill his roster. We know he's looking at some JC kids. We just don't know their names, and a lot of folks are like, even offline before we asked, it's like, hey, do you any heads up on who these JC kids are? Do you know any insight into some of these JC players?
That's an area where Menzies, he indicated that he may go to the junior college route with some of these open scholarships for next year, get more of an instant impact. They are having some JUCO visits this month. The names haven't come out yet. No one's reported, who those visits are going to be. I know there are some guys that they're interested in. I know they've offered Shakur Justin, who's from Hutchinson Community College in Kansas. He's the #1 available junior college prospect. He led them to a national JUCO title last year. He's a 6'7" power forward, good rebounder, athletic. I talked to his head coach, his junior college head coach, and he said Kansas and Iowa State were the two schools that were mainly recruiting him. Justin has UNLV in his final 9, which is a lot. I mean, the final 9 is you're not really narrowing it down much, but UNLV is in it. So I don't know if that's one of the visits. They've also offered a player named Chris Darrington from Vincennes in Indiana.
You know who played there, Rebel Great? Sorry to cut you off.
Who's that?
Tyrone Nesby.
Oh, really?
T-Nice, yeah.
So maybe he's mining the pipeline a little bit.
Yeah. But we're getting that Vincennes pipeline built up again. Yes.
But Darrington is a combo guard. The thing that you want to know about him is he shot, I think, like 43% from three-point range last year. He scored, 20 points a game. So he's a guy that can come in maybe, and the team needs shooting more than they needed anything else. So if you can bring in a guy like that who can make shots, that's something UNLV is interested. I know they've offered those two guys. I haven't confirmed yet that those guys are visiting, but they have offered them. They're interested.
All right, we're kind of going to shift gears a little bit to UNLV football, which is a great conversation piece. And Eddie on Facebook wants to know how UNLV football will handle its massive 6-deep rotation at running back this year. The Rebels, of course, Mike, they ran the rock pretty good last year, top 20 nationally. Its quarterbacks also gain yards, return a lot of pieces except the center, Kreitler, on the offensive line. They will be able to pound the rock. You got Charles Williams, the kid from Fresno. They signed. So they got kids that could carry the rock. Do they have too many kids where the touches possibly could become an issue?
No, I mean, that's a position where if you're playing well and you deserve playing time, you seem to find carries, because guys get nicked up, guys get banged up. Like last year it was, if Lexington Thomas, when he took over that role early in the year, it looked like he was going to be the every down back. It was, are we going to get Charles Williams enough carries? And then Lexington Thomas gets nicked up. He goes down for a few games. All of a sudden, Charles Williams becomes the man, and he sets the freshman rushing record for the program. So I'm not worried about distribution. I mean, Charles Williams will go in as the #1 guy, I believe, or co-#1s with him and Thomas if they're both healthy. Those are two explosive, productive backs. That's the important thing. Xavier Campbell is an experienced guy. He's got more playing time last year, late towards the end of the year. Those are the experienced guys. The freshmen and the younger players will work in. There will be carries to go around. So there'll be games where they're blowing people out. There'll be games against teams where they're running out the clock and they're just, they want to pull Lexington Thomas to avoid hits or give guys some breathers. Running back is a position I don't worry about guys getting the ball.
All right. Staying with football, at Vegas Steve on Twitter, Steve Snell wants to know, is this Tony's make or break year? Sanchez, this will be his 3rd year with UNLV. Starting to see more of his players in the program. Won 3 games in 2015. 4 games last year in 2016. Is this a year he's got to have a breakthrough before the natives start getting restless?
No, I think that this could be if they go, it could be a break year. If they go winless, like that's going to be, or if they win 1 game, that's going to seriously stall momentum. But I don't think it's a maker. I don't think some people are saying bowl game or bust. I don't think it's that extreme. Like I don't feel like if they go 5-6, or if they miss a bowl game, if they're 1 game under 500 and they don't go to a bowl game, is that the end of the world? No. I would like to see more progress than that. It would be great if they finished above 500. I just don't think that he's that close to the hot seat. He just signed a 2-year extension. I don't see him being on the hot seat, barring something completely disastrous, a winless season or a scandal or something like that.
All right, we've got a few folks that are interested in some of the administrative stuff, some questions about the AD search and situation. Vegas 34 at Rebel Rob 34 says, why on earth, Mike, is UNLV keeping TKM, that's our abbreviation
Tina
for
Kunzer-Murphy.
Yeah, in any capacity. And Mike, please don't give the politically correct answer. Mike, as somebody who works with you here at the Sun, please give us the politically correct answer.
Well, she's transitioning from athletic director to a role in the fundraising department. I'm not sure. I'm not sure why. I'm guessing it's something of a soft landing. Maybe they didn't want to make it a big public display of firing her or disposing her, or before they brought in a new athletic director. This may be a way to sort of soften everything and not make it as much of a, hey, we're firing this person, everything's in turmoil, everything's a disaster. It's more of like a, hey, she's willingly stepping down. It may be one of those mutually decided, sort of how Dave Rice resigned in the middle of last season as opposed to being fired. It may be one of those mutual things where it's sort of we'll let her save face and sort of move to a lesser role, sort of out of the spotlight, but really that decision came down from above.
Even though this is Ask Grimala and not Ask Brewer, could I give you my
interject.
15
Feel free,
cents?
jump in.
I think because Tina's been in this town so long, remember she was at the Las Vegas Bowl forever, she may know people to where she could actually fundraise.
Yeah, I mean, she would be.
Is that a bad thought?
That's one of the. Okay. They have had fundraising success while she is in that role. I mean, Tony Sanchez has done a good job. They've raised a lot of money for that practice facility. I know Sanchez has done all the heavy lifting on that, but she was the athletic director while that happened. She's done some. In terms of fundraising, I think that's been one of her strongest qualities as the athletic director. So, I mean, there is some. I mean, it's maybe probably why she chose to take that path.
Yeah, there's 2 schools of thought on the new AD. Is one, it's going to be tough to hire your of quality athletic director when the 2 marquee sexy programs, football and basketball, have coaches with long contracts. Do you buy into that narrative? Do you think maybe Menzies could be in trouble if the new AD doesn't like him and he just wants to hit the reset button? I
think the way someone who had some insight on the search, the way they explained it to me was that, and I kind of agree with this, is that that may be a deterrent for some candidates, but for other candidates, it's more. It may actually be a chance for them. They may view it as a chance. Hey, I can come in, and because those aren't my coaches that I hired, those aren't my guys in place, I can sort of get a year or two where I'm not judged. As the athletic director, those wins and losses don't go on my record because those aren't my guys. So I get a year. I come in, and I've got a year to fix up some things behind the scenes, to hire some internal staff, to do some administrative stuff, and get everything in place before I hire coaches. And that it sort of gives me a year of a head start, because those wins and losses will be attributed to Tina Kunzer-Murphy, who hired those coaches. So that I don't think it's as much of a negative. If you're the AD and you want to come in and you want to get rid of those guys, or you want to get rid of one of those guys, you can find a way to do it. You may have to wait a year, but you can find a way to do it. It's not going to stop anyone, I don't think, from taking the job if they really want it.
All right, we're all over the board now. Jerry on Facebook wants to know about Armani Rogers. He's like 6'5", 230, looks like a brick truck. He's going to run all over the field, but do you think he's going to be advised to run out of bounds or slide so he doesn't get injured? Because if he gets injured, we know what's behind him in Paladek and Stanton, and Sanchez has yet to have a year without a quarterback from 1 to 12.
I know. I asked, leading up to the spring game, I asked Tony Sanchez, hey, what's your main focus for the spring game? What do you want to get out of this? And he said, well, first and foremost, the most important thing, without a doubt, is we want to get out of it without any injuries. We don't want anyone to get injured. That's the most important thing, bar none. So he's cognizant of keeping the players healthy, and obviously Armani Rogers is the most important guy, and because he is a guy who likes to run around and move out of the pocket, he's going to take hits. But he said they made a point in spring practice to, and in spring practice sessions and in the spring game to a quick whistle when he gets when he's in the pocket and the rush is coming and it looks like he's taking a sack, because they didn't want him avoiding sacks. That's when they blow the whistle, when he's in the pocket. If he's scrambling out for on a running play or a rollout or something like that, they let it go if he's running beyond the line of scrimmage, because then you can sort of pull up and not hit him, or he can get out of bounds. So those plays they sort of let go. Anything else, they're blowing the whistle as quickly as they can, because it's obvious to everyone, including the coaches, how important he is. Like, he can't get injured in the first game. You've got to. He is the main reason for excitement in that program right now. Mm-hmm. So it's like you need him. You need him out there.
Yeah. Apparently, we have a lot of fans watching us on Facebook named Frankie. Frankie K wants to know about the new stadium. Once the new stadium's built, will UNLV recruiting go way up, capitalized way and up? And I thought that chat you had with Sanchez this week, it was in our paper today at Las Vegas Sun. Sanchez uses new stadium to boost recruiting. I don't want to steal your thunder, but tell us about the reaction that he got and help answer that question from our guy, Frankie K.
I mean, it's definitely going to help. I mean, I think Tony Sanchez said, I said, hey, have you heard any feedback from recruits or anything? This was 24 hours after the Raiders were approved here. And he said, yeah, we've got some recruits that have been texting me saying, hey, congratulations. I've had other coaches, texting him congratulations. And Sanchez was saying, when you're recruiting kids, it's usually, the initiator, the coaches are texting the kids, or the coaches are reaching out to the kids to talk to them. So having recruits initiate conversations with you is a big deal, and that's a sign that, kids are excited about it. I still think that the stadium is nice, and it's nice to be able to tell a freshman next year, hey, you're going to get to play 2 years in this new stadium, or you're going to get to play 3 years in the new stadium if you redshirt. I still think the practice facility is sort of underrated in how important that is to recruiting, because a stadium you play in once a week. You play in it, 4, 5, 6 times a year. The practice facility for the football players, they live there. They live there. That's where they do, all their studying. That's where they do all their training before, after practice. They just hang out there. That's where they live.
There's going to be a barber shop in that thing.
That's how much time you spend in a practice facility as a player. So I think that's underrated, is going to be the more important factor. If you build a really nice practice facility that recruits can come in and walk around and it seems nice and everybody's hanging out and it's a good vibe and it's all state of the art and they can see themselves having fun there for 4 years, that is what is.
He is the biggest Rebel fan in all of Las Vegas. He's at every football game, every basketball game, always reading our stories. He's watching now. What up, bro? Always putting our stuff on social media. He loves Sanchez. He's a guy if there was 100,000 of this kid cheering for the Rebels, we'd have a Alabama, Ohio State following. But he wants to know, I think, a lot what I think everybody out there, is this a bowl year for UNLV? Can they get to that magical 6 wins to play in the postseason?
That is going to depend entirely on the defense. I feel like the offense is ready to go for a team that has been a program that's been down for a long time. UNLV is surprisingly deep and talented at all the skill positions and at offensive line. Rogers, I feel like whatever quarter, they scored 32 points a game last year with just a rotating quarterbacks. I feel like whether it's Rogers, bad last, one of the going to be enough to win games.
Yeah, because I think the Mountain West is just so average that
you're
going to have some built-in opportunities.
You could win 4 games in the Mountain West. I'm not putting that past UNLV. I think they're capable of that. It's just like that Wyoming game last year, where you got to outscore someone 68-62 to win a game. It's maybe give Armani a chance to win 28-21. Can you hold a team to 21 every now and then? Once a month, can you make it easy for the offense to win a game?
Yeah, and Carla has another question, and obviously this could be a little hiccup, a little roadblock for the Rebel basketball team, but Rob Jeter, the lead assistant for Menzies, has been rumored to go to University of Wisconsin as its lead assistant coach in the carousel. And if he were to leave, the feeling is that Jordan Johnson, the point guard he brought with him, this guy, Johnson, who led the world in assists, Wisconsin, then Johnson goes with Jeter, and now we're just stuck with Morin, who is a turnover waiting to happen, who you love and want to have over for dinner.
Well, all of that is true. But, yeah, so I've seen Wisconsin's lead assistant left to become the head coach at Tennessee Chattanooga, which opens up a spot on the Wisconsin staff. The head coach there has got a long history with Rob Jeter. They were both assistants at Wisconsin and a couple other schools. So I've seen a couple news stories where Jeter is mentioned as one of the leading candidates. I don't know if anything has happened there yet, but I mean, it is out there. And if he were to leave the program to Wisconsin and they had a scholarship open for Jordan Johnson, that's something I would be worried about because
he could grad transfer.
He is eligible to be a graduate transfer if he's on track to graduate this year, which I assume he is. But when he came here last summer, I got a chance to talk to him at the Desert Rain Summer League for a few minutes, Jordan Johnson, and I asked him, why did you come to UNLV? And he just said, Rob Jeter. Like he loves Rob Jeter. They're connected. Rob Jeter was his head coach at Wisconsin Milwaukee. Johnson was great there. He will be great at UNLV if he takes the court this year. But if Jeter goes, I would be worried about Luke Johnson going with him. If that happens, because UNLV has been planning on moving Joe Van Mooring to the 2 and having Johnson as a starting point guard, I still think they want to move Mooring off the ball, which leaves you with a hole at point guard. Zion Morgan just transferred. He announced his transfer. Poyser transferred. There's not a lot of point guards on the roster. Then you're talking about going into the JUCO ranks, maybe a Darrington, but he's more of a combo. You get a guy like Deshaun Booker, who they haven't offered yet. But
local kid from Agassiz Prep, who's at College of Southern Idaho.
Had an uncle who played at UNLV. He's interested. I spoke to him. He said
Vince Booker.
Yeah, he said he's interested in coming to UNLV. UNLV has talked to his coaches. They haven't offered yet, but he's a guy who had a great year in junior college, led his team to the junior college national tournament, averaged, I think 6 assists a game or something like that. High 30%, like 37, 38% from 3. So he's a guy that could be an option at point guard if you wanted to go with a JUCO guy. So yeah, if Jeter goes, a lot of dominoes could end up, falling with him.
So folks, this has been Ask Grimala. We're on Facebook. We're going to embed this tomorrow at LasVegasSun.com. Mike's going to try to recap our conversation to the best of his ability. The video will be here. We're going to do a few more of these in the off season.
Throughout the off season to sort of keep everybody connected and up to date on what's going on.
So just holler at us at Twitter, at Mike Grimala, at RayBrewer21 if you have any questions, if you have any comments about our coverage. We love Rebel Nation. We love covering UNLV athletics. And when the Rebels win, which I'm convinced is going to happen in football, not so convinced in basketball, we will have all that coverage with you as we celebrate a great university. And thank you, everybody behind the scenes. We had a great team here today at LasVegasSun.com. He's the best with the Rebels in the city, and nobody knows recruiting better than this guy. He's on the phone constantly.